All right, thank you everyone. CRPN Central, this is Dr. Fox. Please like, comment, subscribe. It helps the mission more than you know so that I can do more for you. It really helps. So speaking of which, guess what happened this week? A true blessing, a true, I guess, a victory for the CRPN folks out there. I have been blessed with over 20,000 followers on LinkedIn. Yay. I know it's just a number, but in all sincerity, that means that somewhere out there, there's 20,000 people who are willing to connect with me, to learn about me so I can learn about them. I truly believe in networking, and I believe that we can all come together to get this done. I haven't forgotten all of you who have been there the whole time, who have supported CRPN during the rough times, and it means a lot. So here's to more growing of the network and more improvement. Speaking of which, I had a very interesting conversation with someone this week. They said, oh yeah, I talked to someone at work about you. They said that you're trying to put our CRO out of business. So apparently in CRO world, when someone says Dr. Fox, it's immediately something negative. This is our enemy. He's against us. He just wants us to go out of business. I really want to set the record straight. And I'm starting with this right here, my book. And I want to read you just the dedication in the front. So if you have the book, please feel free to go to page 9. It's right here. But this is kind of how I want to start, and there's a reason for this. So this is the dedication to the book. It says, what you are about to read is the culmination of sleepless nights, frustrations, and epiphanies that I have achieved throughout my years navigating the wild west that we call clinical research administration. These lessons were learned at high expense as I trudged my way through the mucky waters and risked my sanity with every waking email. There is no way I could have made it through this journey alone, and I am filled with eternal gratitude for my fellow clinical research crusaders. To my friends and colleagues, thank you for taking me under your wings, for supporting me, and for venting frustrations during some very challenging times. To those who opposed me, thank you for challenging me, for providing criticism, sometimes not as constructive, but also helpful nonetheless, and for tempering me with your valuable insights, opinions, and perspectives. To each and every one of you who are taking the time to read this book, thank you from the bottom of my heart for supporting the mission to empower our community sites. Let's help each other to be the very best versions of ourselves for our trial participants and for generations of patients in the future. I read that only to comment on whoever out there is saying that I am against them or I am trying to put them out of business. I'm only against one thing, and that is lost lives as a result to inefficient business opportunities. So if you are in support of inefficient business opportunities that literally are killing people every single day because we can't get technology to patients, then absolutely, I'm there to shut that down. If you are here for the right reasons, if you are here to make sure that we can get patients technology that can save their lives efficiently, safely, and possibly as many lives as possible, then we are friends. I have many, many CRO friends that are good friends of mine, and we talk and we help each other. I help them with complicated sites. They help me with complicated situations in CRO world. We're working together. And I want to set the record straight there. So if you think that is Dr. Fox, you might be thinking about 4 or 5 years back. Welcome to TrialSide Chats. This is the CRPN Community Hub where we can come together, talk about questions, raise each other up to a point where we can empower our community sites with what they need to save as many patient lives as possible. We focus particularly on finance, and contract management in clinical research. For this reason, we can make sure that our community research sites have what they need to survive, even to thrive in this industry, so that we can help our sponsors, the sites have what they need to help the patients, and we can all help each other. So this is open forum. Please feel free, if you're out there and you're listening, please feel free to do comments. We'll check in. We'll figure out what we can do with the comments if you have a question. If you want to remain anonymous, if you want to tell me a story, please be sure to send me emails. Be sure to send me ways so that you can get your questions to me. Here is your information. If you want to email me right now, I have it up. We can talk about it. Or if you want to come on to TrialSide chats and tell your story, that's totally up to you. This is open forum. While we wait, I have content to discuss, to talk about, to share, to make sure that we have some things to talk about. But first, one thing that I want to do, this is something that we're starting. Full disclaimer. So this is some very sensitive information. I am not a lawyer, and I will never tell you I am a lawyer. This is specifically from the experiences that I have had in this industry as a result of what I talk to with fellow sites. If you need an attorney, if you do want a lawyer, check out Edie Edens. There's Edie Life Science Law right there, ed.law.com. Highly recommend, one of the best attorneys in my opinion as far as this industry goes. So by continuing this video, you have acknowledged and agreed to these terms right here. And if you don't agree with those, I highly recommend you turn it off right now, because that's just how we roll here. So let's start with ground rules. TrialSide chats, ground rules. If you're going to send me questions, these are the rules. We are talking about anything finance, specifically clinical research finance. This is a very sensitive subject. It's very confidential. No names, no organizations. Keep it confidential. Focus on only the concepts. And after we can go through this in a discussion, we can bring everyone's minds together. Maybe we can focus on best practices to help everyone get what they need to succeed. Let's start with an icebreaker. So thank you so much for everyone for sending your questions, your stories, your comments. We're good for now. If you do send me something this week, odds are it's going to be a couple weeks until we get to them. We have limited time to discuss these things, but let's get started. So how should my site manage late payments for patient visits and invoices? Ooh. So if you're in the audience, whether now or later, that's a good question for you. Does your site ever have to manage this, late payments and invoices? Sometimes it feels like sponsors and CROs are just ignoring their contracts. You can say, hey, where is this? It's late. And they'll say something like, oh, we've had a system change, and so we've got some delays, or we've had personnel turnover, and so we've got delays. And I think I've heard almost every delay excuse from sponsors and CROs possible, but it's never really in the contract. That's one of the things I always say is, could you please show me in the CTA, in the agreement that we sign, that says that the site is okay with the payments being late as a result of internal CRO systems? The answer is no. Same thing like the data entry, the sponsor never agreed for delays as a result of internal site processes. It's not how it works, guys. So we hear a lot, but how do you manage it? Well, every site's going to be different, and they're going to manage these payments, unfortunately, based off of their internal systems. How well are your finances managed? How well do you communicate with your teams? Whatever that might be, that's going to control how you manage this. It's also going to control on who was asking this question. This question in particular was a coordinator. And so if you're a coordinator and you're wondering how these things happen, first of all, good for you for being conscious of the payments. Many coordinators have no idea what's going on with their invoices. So they must have some kind of a communication plan with their finance team to understand what is late and how and why. So maybe they've already got the infrastructure behind it. If you are a site administrator or a decision maker, you may have to apply some protective measures, some protective SOPs in place. Every site's going to be different based off of your policy and your absorbance of risk, but it's going to be different. To answer the question, in short, the best thing you can possibly do to manage patient visits and invoices that are late are to create that aging cycle that we talked about in the past video. Make sure you have an aging cycle, make sure you have strong communication pathways in between your departments, and make sure that you're all on the same page, including the PI. That's a big one. Sometimes the CROs, they'll go straight to the PI, and the PI will make these promises or say certain things without talking to the decision makers and the administrators, and it gets this really weird, complex relationship that some people are told one thing and then the actual thing happens and then rules and who knows what. So just make sure you're on the same page. In short, if you are not paid, odds are you should be able to have some form of control over services provided. You should be able to put holds on certain services provided that do not compromise patient safety. And eventually, if you were to have that form of escalation process and communication plan in each of your trials, odds are every CRO out there has some kind of an escalation SOP where if you do say something, they know who to call, they know how to get something done, and it'll get fixed pretty quickly. Here's the book we're going to reference. It was the what I just read out of in the beginning for the dedication. If you'd like to purchase the book, you'd be supporting the CRPN mission. It means a lot. It's how we can continue to do what we're doing. It's how we can continue to serve you. There's a QR code for Amazon. If you don't want to buy it on Amazon, you can buy it directly from CRPN, 10% off, free shipping. Contact us for details. So let's move on. Let's talk about trial types. So we've spent a couple of sessions talking about stakeholders, like the sponsors, CROs, sites, vendors, and then we started talking about the relationships between those stakeholders and how they are integrated. But now that we know those relationships of the stakeholders, let's talk about the trials that every single one of our sites are seeing throughout the process. So this is from the book. This is on page 35, and if you have the book, you'll see that I skipped part of it because it wasn't relevant to what we're talking about today. But generally, when sites have business development, they're going out there trying to find trials for their sites, they're going to go talk to sponsors, CROs, brokers, SMOs, all of these different people. They're going to try to get trials from these groups. And there's a couple of things that you can consider when you're looking for building your trial portfolio as a site. So generally, you're going to have some kind of a data grab, biobanks, biorepositories, blood collection, sample collection. Not very invasive, just take a sample, ship it out, and you may have some medical records to pull later. Those kinds of trials are one kind where you're not necessarily testing for an intervention in these trials. You're just trying to collect biological specimens so that maybe you could develop your own trial, a lot of preclinical things, a lot of things like that. Those are one kind where you're either grabbing data or grabbing samples, and you're just making a record or a database so that you can build something on top of it. I call them data grab studies. Whether it's a sample or it's a registry where you're pulling medical records, you're pulling data, and you're putting it all together, and hopefully you're going to support a future interventional trial. Then you go into the phases of a trial. There's phase 1, 2, 3. Sometimes there's like a 2-3 pivot where they do like a hybrid, and that's in the clinical stage. This is before the therapeutic is approved for market. This is when you're still in experimental mode. You're still testing this in human beings. You're trying to figure this out, and it gradually scales in the number of trial participants that you will need or expose this experimental therapy to as you progress. Obviously, phase 3 is the bigger one. The phase 3 is where we have many, many sites across the world performing the same exact trial in their communities so that they can get as many, a higher volume of patients onto the trial as possible. Phase 1, you're looking at maybe a handful of patients, 10 to 20. Phase 2, you may be going into something different. And then phase 3, that's when you need hundreds, if not thousands of patients, depending on what you're doing and what your statistics will allow. I'm not going to go into the definitions of each of these. They are in the book. This is also a really good place to point out good clinical practice training. So this is a huge description. There's a lot of resources on how to define these phases, but in this case, we're talking solely on how a site is going to view these as business opportunities. Once you get past phase 3, we have post-market world. This is also where you could have a data registry, maybe long-term follow-up and survival registries and databases, or phase 2 post-market, where you're trying to monitor like a scaled up safety profile of the therapeutic. So when you are in business development world, oh, hey, it's so nice to meet you. I'm so-and-so, I'm working with the site. It's going to be, oh yeah, well, we work in all of these different kinds of trials. Well, it could be, we do all the registries, we do the safety, the specimens. Sometimes there's phase 1s. A lot of phase 1 trials are specific to phase 1 sites. It's very, very special to be a phase 1 site. There's a lot of extra things around it. Most of the time, the majority of the time, sites are probably going to be phase 2 and 3, and then they're going to delve into phase 4 post-market and some data registries. You have to be very careful when it comes to these, and I think we'll come to this on the next slide, but when it comes to the valuation of these trials, the affordability of them versus the ability to perform them properly in the budgets that you perform. It's a little small here, but not only do we have the clinical trial types where we have the biobanks and the phases 1 through 3, and the data grabs, of course, in a clinical research site. Keep in mind, this creates your trial portfolio, what they call your trial mix sites. You have a combination of all these put together. That's kind of how you explain your profile to the people who are seeking your services for trials. Is, oh yeah, what's our trial mix? Well, we have number of phase 2s and 3s, and we do some data registries, and boom, 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 boom. That's also important for when you, well, if you're going to sell to investors, if you're going to be acquired, someone's going to buy your site, knowing your trial mix is really, really important, including your therapeutic area, which leads us to this. So sites, if you join CRPN, for one, you join for free because we have the opportunity to offer free trials. When you go into CRPN World and you join, CRPN will send you a site profile survey. And it collects, it's kind of like a feasibility. If you've seen it before, it just gives us an idea of what trials would be a good fit for you so that when they do come across our desk, we know what sites to send them to. And as a result of that questionnaire, here is another key informant on the trial types that you as sites would be collecting. So this is designed so that sites can select the types of trials that they want to be sent to them. But it is also very important in the conversation when you talk about your trial mix. Not only do you have to worry about data grab studies and phases 1 through 4, but it's also the therapeutic area, the therapeutic indication that you have to specialize in sometimes. When I have open conversations and begin to understand sites, this helps me to understand what is important to them. So prime example is I can have all these conversations with sites and I say, oh, it's so nice to meet you. It's always, how many trials do you have? What's your therapeutic focus? What are you trying to work on? And a lot of the sites, they'll say, oh, well, we're internal medicine, we'll do it all. I'll say, okay, you'll do it all. That's good. So do you do oncology? Oh, no, we don't do oncology. No, that's specialized. We don't do that. Okay, well, do you do pediatrics? Do you help the children? Oh, no, we don't do pediatrics. No, there's some extra hoops there. We don't mess with pediatrics. What about DCT? Oh, no, we want everything to be on the site. So they say that they're focused and they're going to do everything. But then when you start asking them all the questions, they have all these carve outs and examples of things they don't. It's really important as you go through the development of your site that you decide on your therapeutic focus. Specifically, what are you going to be really, really good at? Shout out to Nelson Ruttrick, the Nelson Ruttrick effect. He was really, really good at one thing and one thing only, and he was the best at it. So he wouldn't focus on any other indication except for one very specific one. That's the Nelson-Rudrick effect. The other way is the broad net. We're going to do everything. We're going to do all these different things. And you may have limitations based off of the needs of the trial, but you would definitely be opening up the opportunity for many, many different kinds of trials. So you have to understand that focus. And when you go to discuss your site with certain sponsors and groups like that, they're going to want to know your pedigree. This is your pedigree. What trials do you perform at your site? And you need to select whatever they are. And I guarantee you, sites, I guarantee you, no site out there that I know of can click every single one of those boxes. You're going to have to be very particular in what you do. So let's talk about money here. Learn the trial. So we went to the therapeutic indications. Therapeutic indications, they're going to have different costs based off of the complexities of the trial. And those costs and complexities of the trial are also going to influence the enrollment goals of each trial and contract. And they're also going to influence how many trials you can have at one time based off of your load. Prime example is if you have like the sample grab collection studies, especially the competitive ones, the ones where they just turn on the works and they enroll as many people as possible. And then when they have what they need, they're going to turn off the works, and that's it. All the way to the super duper complex. There's maybe very, very hard to recruit these patients, and as a result, your site may have like one patient, and that's it. If you get one, everyone's happy. Super duper complex, very, very hard to find. It's that spectrum based off of a complexity and number of patients of targeted enrollment where you're going to start to assess the costs of these trials. Obviously, if it's going to be a situation where a patient comes in and they get a blood draw and then that blood is shipped out and there's some medical records pulled, maybe a couple CRFs here and there, that is not going to be a lot of money per patient. But you're probably going to make up for that in patient volume. There's a lot of patients to manage. There's a lot of patients to get on the trial, and in the ability for that patient to have medical records. So you'll be pulling medical records. Maybe you have to do medical record requests. Sample collection, data grab studies, they can range. The lower level might be a few $100s. And that's what you would be paid to interact with the patient, to get informed consent, to pull some medical records, to send them out. It's sufficient time to do that. All the way to highly complex biopsies, tissue samples, very rare patients. It's hard to find these patients. It's hard to screen them. They're difficult, maybe a couple of thousands of dollars if you're lucky. That's what we're talking about. And then based off of range, whatever it might be. All the way to, let's go back to the oncology patients, where a single oncology patient could be years of work. And I mean years of work, maybe even through the lifetime of the patient. Maybe they're on a track where unfortunately they're not going to survive too long. And so you're going to be following them until survival, until follow-up. And as a result, those can be pretty substantial budgets per patient because it's really, really hard to get them and it's really, really hard to keep them. So you have to think of that span when it comes to these budgets and when it comes to managing your trial mix as a site. If you are out there and you are listening, I would love to hear your stories about how you developed your trial mix and how you responsibly budget for them based off of the indication. Please feel free to leave comments, share what you can. I understand this is sensitive and I understand this creates a competitive edge. But if you have any best practices on how to analyze your trial mix and on how to balance your resources to optimize the quality to your community, help your fellow site. You're not going to lose trials by helping your sites to help their communities as well. So on that, this is what we're going to that was the learning section for the day. And so here we go. Knowledge sent. Hopefully it can help someone to save a life out there. Okay, so let's move on to the case studies. These case studies they were sent to CRPN. They were completely anonymous. I did have to paraphrase them. And so you'll see my writing style in here. These are all true stories. These are all stories that are flowing into the CRPN world right now. And I don't want to call anyone out. I don't want to get anyone in trouble, but I do want to address these as case studies as something that we could do to help each other. So here's the first one. And it says, my study's CRA is bugging me to schedule the trial's closeout visit. How many of you have had that? Hey, I really need to schedule this closeout visit. Hey, this is happening. But my finance team tells me that we have to wait until the trial has paid its late bills. The CRA is getting pretty pushy and insisting we have to keep our closeout visit schedule. And I feel like I'm stuck between my site administration and the CRA. What should I do? Well, to this individual, first and foremost, the fact that you have some kind of a communication in place with your finance team to double check this before closeout visit is a really, really good start. That is huge. It happens and it's frequent. Unfortunately, finance teams are a second thought. And I've run into it. People run into it when you don't have a communication plan in place. It always runs into the finance team coming in and saying, "Oh yeah, whatever happened to that one trial? I just kind of lost traction. I don't know what happened." And then the operations team, regulatory, whoever it might be, they'll come in and say, "Oh yeah, that closed like 6 months ago. You just lost thousands of dollars because of that." The invoiceable window of opportunity or the contractual long stop is expired after then, and you would have lost the ability to send the contract or the invoice for the closeout visit. So kudos on having that as a checkpoint in your site. I should also note that it says the CRA is getting pretty pushy and insisting we have to keep our closeout visit schedule. Yeah, so I've seen this a lot. The CRAs, and we talked about this in the last video too, on what a CRA can and cannot do. CRAs are under a ton of pressure. They have a manager. They're like, hey, you have to close out all these trials before XYZ. Hey, we have to meet this data lock point. We have all these milestones, all these deadlines. And CRAs will become demanding on sites like a supervisor. Hey, we have to keep this closeout visit schedule. You have to go to this closeout visit on this time. You have to, a lot of haves. The CRAs, they can get to be to a point where they do demand. And in this situation, this is a coordinator. You probably need to kind of excuse yourself from the situation and just connect the CRA to your finance team. Because if it's the finance team telling you can't be done and the CRA saying you have to do it, you're in a situation where you've got two groups who are telling you something to do that are contrary, and they need to come together to have this discussion. And that's okay. It's totally okay. If you have a finance administration that's going to actually sit here and say you can't do this, they know what they're doing. They've probably gone through this before. What's going to happen is the finance team is going to talk to the CRA and say, hey, you've got late bills. The CRA is going to try the same thing. You have to do this. You have to do that. And the finance team is going to look at the CRA and say, actually, no, we don't. Our SOPs have to protect us from this, and we will not schedule a closeout. We will not release the schedule of the closeout until you are current in your account. So if you want to get the closeout visit scheduled, or if you want to maintain your current schedule, you're going to have to get this paid and up to date before we proceed. Once we get the payment and it's been established in the bank deposits, then we will release this for closeout visit scheduling. And you, the CRC, don't have to worry about that stress. Don't shoulder that seriously. Let that go on your finance administration. Let them handle it. They've got access to the contracts, the budgets. They've got access to all the late things. That's something that you shouldn't have to worry about at all. So, and CRAs out there, do you do a routine check with your sites to make sure that their finances are okay? Because if you don't, it's very possible that when you are in a hurry and you have a deadline, you're going to have a little bit of a delay as a result of something you could have prevented this whole time. You need to take finance seriously. It's not a second thought. And I mean, I always tell everyone, would you show up without a paycheck? If I told you today that I'm sorry I can't pay you, you're not going to get a paycheck, would you show up? Is your drive, is your why that strong that you'd show up without getting money? And if the answer is yes, then good for you. But most of you out there are going to sit there and say, I have a family to feed. I have to support myself. I have to take care of this. If I don't get paid, I have to go do something else. Exactly. So I know that we're all in here for a good mission. I know that we're all trying to do this for the right thing, but let's really be realistic here. If the money's not there, it's not going to happen. And that happens here with closeout visits, guys. So let's move on to the next one. So we have, our site was in a bad shape financially. It came to a point where we were going to have to let coordinators go to keep the site open. And unfortunately, sites, this is more of a common story than you know. We told our CRA this would be the coordinator's last day. They made one phone call and late payments were paid overnight. Our coordinator got to keep their job. It's amazing what we can do when we work together. I have had personal experience with these victories where there was something that was wrong and it was really, really bad, and someone was going to suffer because of it. And it took a lot of activation energy, it took a lot of management energy to do it, but there were ways and resources to streamline and fast track certain things so that the problem could be solved literally overnight. Literally. Kept sites' doors open, kept patients going through the doors, kept saving lives, all because everyone finally got their things together. I hate to call this a victory, but these are the times when you run into stories like this when you're reminded of why you do what you do. It's not about the dollars even. It's not about filling pockets. It's literally about making sure that people's lives are better. And to that CRA that literally made a phone call and changed lives, you have my highest respects and thank you on behalf of that site. I've met a number of CRO representatives who are in it for the right reasons and who are doing it to help the sites so that the sites can help the patients. And you are appreciated. This how would we have prevented this from being getting to this point where sites are so they're so much in trouble that they're on the verge of collapse? How can we keep the sites from getting to that point? Just a little prevention, a little more management, a little more communication. What can we do? I would love to see or to hear your stories about that. So if you would like to remain anonymous, let's just be honest, CROs, I know for a fact that the squeaky wheels get replaced. And so there are CROs out there all the time who tell stories anonymously because they can't get fired. They don't want to be let go. If you have any anonymous story that could help to raise the morale, raise the system to a point where we can help everyone, please feel free to send it out in confidentiality. I get those all the time, and if you would rather not write it down, if you'd rather have a conversation, happy to do that too. We really appreciate you being out there and being there for the sites. So big kudos. It's a victory, but I'm not sure if that's a good thing that it's a victory. All right, to all my negotiators out there, The CRO sent me a first offer, and I countered. They responded once and said it was the highest budget they'd received. Raise your hands out there if you heard that from a CRO. And that they would get back to me. And after weeks of trying to follow up, I'm being ignored. What's going on? All right, so this is very, very common. For one thing, negotiators out there, I'm pretty sure it's a script. I literally was negotiating two totally different trials, two totally different sponsors, the same CRO. And the language that was used from both, it could have been a boiler template. Like literally, it was literally probably some kind of a boilerplate script where it was, oh, your budget is the highest budget across all sites, therefore we have to do this. Is there any? So anyway, you could tell that they are just copying and pasting what they're told to put in an email, to the point where there's no novelty about it, there's no validity around it, it's literally just smokescreen. So that's one thing. The other one is, and this is really important, I think we talked about this in another forum, is they're quiet. Why haven't they gotten back to me? And I've been here too. I always call it Negotiation Wednesdays, everyone. So that is always when I'll go through my rounds and do the follow-ups. Hey, what's the progress on this, for the things that are just in the routine cycle of the negotiation. But odds are Negotiation Wednesdays are also when the sponsors and CROs tend to put things together and send it as a response back to the sites. Everyone loves Wednesdays for some reason. So one Wednesday goes down, 2 Wednesdays, a month later, still following up, still getting the paper trail showing that you're trying. And it's going to be, oh, it's with the sponsor for review, it's doing this or that. But keep in mind, everyone out there, that the CROs are paid to onboard sites in a timely way. What we have found is that when you go into this cycle, your site has been put into a holding pattern pretty much, where they haven't turned you loose yet, but they're waiting on the other sites to send their responses, because quite frankly, they want to see if they can accomplish it without the budget that you provided. So when they're ghosting you like this, it's because they're waiting on the other sites to see how that budget looks. And then if your budget looks about like theirs, then they'll go back to you with a counter. Otherwise, what's going to happen is you'll go through a month to 6 weeks of constant follow-ups, and then it's going to turn into, oh, well, we decided not to work with your site anymore. Thank you very much. And that's it. So then you have to move on to the next one. It's kind of douchey, to be honest, and it's not great, but it's economy. I understand if I were out there trying to shop for things, like if I wanted to go buy a new car or something like that, saw a car that I wanted, it's really, really expensive, I'd go to all the other dealers and see if there's a car that's similar that I could spend less money on and get. It's the same thing here, sites. You can't take it personally. And odds are, if that's the way that they do business, they may have just done you a favor, because do you really want to lock into 3 to 5 year commitment with someone who does business like that? Probably not. In my humble opinion, you're better off just going and finding the right sponsors and CROs to work with. So, all right, we're going to end it a little early today. We've got plenty of content that we went through. We're at 40 minutes. I think that's great. Again, so the Clinical Research Payment Network is completely free for sites to join. It's more than affordable for sponsors and CROs. You will save money. That's the whole reason why I started the company, was so you can save money. Sites get free trial opportunities as long as they fill out that profile questionnaire, like the one that you saw with all those indications on there. And sponsors, you're going to have the best financial experience in this industry, I assure you. That's our objective, and that's where we're going. You've also got a lot of really cool CRPN upgrades coming. There's a lot of cool initiatives, so make sure you read the book. There's more of that coming. Make sure that you check out a lot of the CRPN content because we're going to be expanding on that. What conferences are you going to this year? And will you be seeing CRPN at those conferences? I don't know. There's a lot of growth around here, and I am super thankful for each and every one of you who gave me the opportunity to grow and who are there to support the mission as we grow. All right, so I'm gonna go back to here. All right, so this is Dr. Fox. Please like, comment, subscribe, share your voice. See you next time.